This is not a test. Stay calm in an orderly fashion. Make your way to the lifeboats.
Mayday, the ship is sinking.
Welcome back, everybody. Today is Wednesday, which means we are in the meditations. So
philosophy and deeper thoughts.
Deeper thoughts about recovery and this subject of recovery. So for those of you who have been listening for a couple of weeks now, you know that on Wednesday is usually for the recoveries, but we will always encourage more listeners, more viewers. I believe next Friday, or this upcoming Friday, we are going to be interviewing, I want to say it's going to be Sean Finnerty. I think it's Sean, who is the head of the Assert staff, or the hospital staff and recovery coaching in the hospital. So definitely tune into that one. And if you are listening, if you are just tuning into this, last Monday, we did neurochemistry of the brain, and that's starting a 3 to 4 part series on the neurochemistry of the brain over the next couple of Mondays. We're going to be talking about what different types of drugs do on the brain and all that kind of stuff. But with that being said, let's go ahead and check in. Hunter, how you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good, man. Just been slaving away at the old job, but other than that,
No kidding, man.
Yeah, it's been busy, but it's been good. We were just talking about it. It's been rewarding. So
hey, I'm saying there's nothing better than when you feel, I think before we jump into this, I think we should start off before we even hit some of the questions that we pre-prepare. Is we were starting a really interesting conversation about when individuals decide to invest themselves completely, and what that difference looks like inside of their life, inside of their home life, their business, their professional life, all that kind of stuff. So I'd like to talk more about that.
Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it.
Because before we turned on the camera, before we turned on the mics, what ended up happening was Hunter was telling me about, he's really invested in the company now. He feels like he's not only personally invested, but like, I want this to be my profession. I want to see this company succeed. I want to see those who are around me succeed. And I want to, invest myself in any way that I can to make that process, more fruitful for myself and for everybody involved. And I think that's a far cry away from where you were even, let's say, 6 months ago.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd say there was a separation in my mind. There were very strong barriers of the sense, like I have my job, I have my work, and then I have what I like to do. I always enjoyed my job. I've always enjoyed what I do as a recovery coach for the most part, other than when I'm not taking care of myself or something like that. So I guess it came to the point where it was like, I really enjoy my job, and it's not a separation anymore. It's like, this is part of my life. It's something I really enjoy to do. It's still a job, but it's something I really enjoy.
Dude, 100%. I couldn't agree more. I constantly, I know at least early on in my career in this field, and we've talked about this a million times if you talked about it once, we tell recoveries that we're teaching, and we tell recovery coaches that are new to this field, look, these are going to be the struggles that you're going to have to deal with 6 months to a year on. Struggles like feeling like you're burning out. You talked about even in your interview, which was a couple Fridays ago for those who want to listen, but you talked about in your interview how you thought that your job could be supplemental for your recovery. You started working in the field, and you're like, I'm going to meetings with recoveries. Why do I need to go to meetings on my own? And we tell recoveries consistently, and recovery coaches consistently, you cannot let that be your operating function. If you do that, you're going to be in trouble. Maybe not now, but 6 months, a year from now. And you will hit that wall, and the wall is where the ultimate choice has to come in about your career. That wall is, I can either stay in this field and I can learn how to better take care of myself, and I can learn how to participate in what we were just talking about of I'm all in this, this field is, my profession, and I want to see my success. I want to see my company's success. I want to see the success of those around me who I'm working with, my coworkers. Or you can choose to pack it up and go away. You can choose to ignore it. And how many times have we seen people ignore that feeling that they're starting to feel that and they ignore it?
You're talking about the burnout sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen it time and time again. I think it's very prominent in this field. And I feel like people think it's more of like well, I just need to have a weekend and then I'll be okay. And it's like, no, that's not what's going on here. What's going on is there's a long, like I've talked to, I was just talking to a buddy of mine, the difference between feeling worn out and feeling burnout.
Yes.
It's like, I feel worn out sometimes. Like I'm like, man, work has been something else this week. You know, it's like, it's been busy and I want to relax. But when I feel burnout, that means that I'm not taking care of myself. That means my self-care is suffering. So there's a difference there. There's things on a day-to-day basis that I've been neglecting that have finally caught up with me. So I feel like there's a big prominence there, and there's like a misconception of that. So we want to look at it like, oh, I just need some time to myself. I just need to have a couple days. It's like, no, you need to, on a day-to-day basis, take time for yourself.
Dude, you are absolutely right. And you hit it, I think, right on the nail. I think you really just hit the core, the focal point of the issue, which is people that believe that all I need is a little time away. And it's like, no, you need a radical, revelatory changing of how you approach this field.
Mm-hmm.
If you are feeling burnt out, and legitimate burnout, that is the only compromise.
Right.
There is no world where I'm feeling burnt out, so I'm going to take a week-long vacation and then I'm going to come back. You will be right back to the same place a month from now, guaranteed.
Yeah, 100%.
It's going to happen. You need to have a revelation. You need to have something where it's like I was one way and then a switch got turned on in my brain and I approached it a different way. And one of the ways that we talk about, and we talk about this in class, and we've had, I don't know how many conversations about this, but it's something that for those who are professionals that might be listening to right now, we cannot stress the importance of it, which is callus. Callus
100%.
is something that, there's not enough I can say about it. And the unfortunate part, and I think you can agree with this, is when we are in the human services field, we are taught to approach every situation with vast amounts of empathy, vast amounts of understanding, and want to help the individual. And I think that's right. We should do that.
From 9 to 5.
From 9 to 5.
Right.
And then you need callus. Now, do you want to explain what callus is a little bit?
Yeah. So callus it actually makes you feel like I've actually felt when I experience callus, like, am I okay? Like, am I emotionally dead to this right now?
Mm-hmm.
But it's that sense of like, if a client calls me with a dumpster fire at 11 PM, I don't answer that phone call. It's a matter of separating myself a little bit, taking a step back, realizing that person's life is not my own life, that I have to take care of myself and my recovery. Otherwise, I'm not good for anybody else.
Yes.
You know, it's a matter of just letting that empathy draw back a little bit.
Dude, 100%. And here's the thing. It comes down to recognizing 3 different letters that makes up one word. J-O-B, job.
Mm-hmm.
It is a job. It's
Right.
a job. It's a job. It's not your life. And the people that, how many times have we seen it? The people that are 100% in and they love recovery, they love what they do. And they're like, I'm going to save the world by the power of my testimony, which is not what a recovery coach does. It's not what you're supposed to be doing in this field. If you want to do that, become a mentor. You want to do that, become a sponsor.
Go to H&I meetings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You want to do that? That's great. That's great that you want to do that. There's avenues for that. This is not that avenue.
Right.
Like you have to be really strict and clear on where your barriers are and, how you're going to approach this field. But we see people jump into this and they think it is more than a job. It's my life. And it's like, you thinking that is what's going to lead you into trouble.
Yeah. And I'd say there's a balance there, right? Because
Yes.
I think we're kind of correcting ourselves. It could seem like to the listener, but I see the distinction you're making. At the beginning, we talked about full investment. Like this is a part of my life. I like my job, but I have my life outside of my work at the same time. So I have the meetings I have to go to, I have to work on myself. I have to do my own recovery and I have to do my own thing. But when I'm at my job, of course I'm about my job. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm going to give my all at that job. But then when I'm out of there, it's like, I got to stop,
Yes. And absolutely. And I think that the reason I wanted to bring this up is because we haven't really brought this up yet, because callous is such a word that people, they get shivers down their spine when they hear it. Right. When we say it in class, like what do you see on people's faces when you say you need callus?
Yeah. They're like, need what? Because it's such you think social work field, you're like empathy.
Yes.
So
that's the first word, empathy. I need to be able to be relational. And the reality is healthy empathy is great. It is one of the most powerful tools you can have in the field.
I hope every single one of my clients succeeds in life. I can feel for them a little bit when I'm talking with them, and they talk about something I've gone through. But after I go home at night, I don't think the single thought about my clients. And that's healthy empathy. Like I care about them when they're there, but when I'm not there, I have to worry about myself.
Now I want you to say that again. So that, because that's, you just said what we're talking about when we come to callus. This is callus. This is callus in real life. What do you do during the day versus what you do at home?
When I'm there during the day with my clients, I care. I feel for them. I mean, but when I go home, I don't think about them. That's the bottom line. When I'm at my house, that's time for me to worry about
Now,
my house.
I want to pause because there's going to be people that are listening to this right now that are going to say, "What?
Mhm.
What? What do you mean you don't care? What do you mean you don't think about them?"
Right.
And it comes down to that's what it takes.
Mhm.
You can call us. You can say anything that you want about us, but it's like we've been in this field long enough.
Mhm.
We've seen people come. We've seen people go, and we've seen people come that we're able to say very early on they need to change that
Right.
because if they don't, they're going to go. Because what happens if you don't have callus in this field other than burnout? What are some serious side effects?
Sleep loss, a huge one. Problems with the family, lack of self-care, things that lead to burnout. Really, it's all the things that are going to lead up to that. Like, if I was to worry about my clients and keep thinking about them when I close my eyes at night, I'm not going to sleep. You know,
Yes.
it's like I have to sleep. I want to sleep.
Yeah, because you're not going to be any good to them. It doesn't help if you're struggling with a particularly poignant situation with one of your recoveries, and then you go home and you are sleepless because you're thinking about so much of it,
Stressed out.
and then guess what? That problem's still going to be there in the morning.
Right.
You get there, and now not only is the problem still there, but you're stressed out and you lack sleep.
Mhm.
That ain't going to help.
Yeah.
But how many recovery coaches have we seen that happen to?
A ton. I've seen it happen in 12-step communities as well. I think since we're talking to the recovery right now, I want to point out that this is very true in just recovery in general. The sad matter of fact is a lot of people relapse. A lot of people die.
That happens.
It does happen. It's part of the disease. It is a symptom of the disease. So we have to learn to do that. We hear it in 12-step communities, by the grace of God, there go I.
Mhm.
When people relapse or somebody dies and people are like, man, that's cold.
Yeah.
Like better them than me. I've heard people say that and people are like, what?
It may be cold, but it's true.
Exactly.
There's serious truth. Because the problem is, I think people hear that and they don't understand it. They don't understand where it comes from. They don't understand the history of it. They don't, because, better them than I, that isn't something that somebody just tossed off the shoulder, off the cuff, that it's like, oh man, look at that guy. That guy's cold cold and heartless. Like,
Right.
no, that is a tradition right there. Now,
Mhm.
it's not a written tradition in many 12-step programs, but it's a tradition
It's a
nonetheless.
saying. Yeah.
It is a saying that has been so deeply embedded and integrated in many 12-step communities because it is the echoing of what we've talked about, the external and the internal voice of it is better that they died than I, because I can't, this is evidentiary proof that if I go back, this is what will happen.
Exactly.
And they use it as a catalyst. They use it as foliage for the fire to double down and say, this is why I'm a part of this. This is why, because if I didn't, I'd be out doing, what he did and I'd be dead.
Mhm.
And I can't do that.
It's a good reminder. Honestly, if you work in this field, it's a reminder every day. I've seen countless clients of mine. It happens. They go back out.
Mm-hmm.
And I see their life. They don't contact me anymore, but I'll see them 2 weeks later down at the mission, homeless, and it's like, I see that. And that's a reminder to me.
Mhm.
Every time I see it, I'm like, that is why I don't want to go back out. It's the same in 12-step communities. I see people go back out and then they come back in beat up, tore up, or they don't come back and they die. And that's a reminder to me. If I do that, that's exactly where I'm going. I'm not special. There's nothing unique about my addiction to where I'm going to be like able to handle it.
Yes.
So it's a reminder. I'm going right back there.
Well, and I can't stress it enough. I mean, I know I've said that a few times now. And I know we've been hashing this out for about 15 minutes, but we have seen too many recovery coaches and too many case managers that we've taught recovery coaching.
People in recovery
People in recovery that do not believe us, that think that they're going to be able to save the world, that they're going to be able to save this recovery, and the biggest problem is then they view us as like we're cold. They view us as like, oh, that callous is why you're not succeeding in this job or in this place. And it's like, I do not know of not one instance where somebody had bouts of empathy with no callus that didn't get burned,
Mhm.
that didn't end up, either relapsing or ending up in a serious, literal legal trouble.
Right.
We have to understand that callus is there to protect you and to protect them that you're helping. Because if that callus wasn't there, we've had people, I've had people that work for me that have gotten too invested. And when they get too invested, do you know what it does? It doesn't do anybody any good.
Right. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this real life scenario. Okay. So I'm working with a recovery or something and they just lost their house.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, man, that sucks. Let's do something about it. So I will do every single thing in my power while I'm at work to get them somewhere safe to stay.
Mm-hmm.
not going to let them come to my house after work.
No.
They're not going to stay the night at my place. And that's healthy empathy, boundaries, right? We have that, like, I'm not going to let anybody stay at my house that's in active addiction. Sorry.
Well, and I'm not
Or
going to
the-
call
the
any
client,
favors
you
to, my sponsor. I'm not going to call any favors into, with this individual. They have to understand. And I think it's just a human services field thing a lot of the time. And it's not for everybody by any means, but there's a vast portion of people who are in this form of human services that they believe that if they're not doing to the utmost extreme, they're givers, that if they don't continually pour out or continually give, that they are somehow, not serving their client to the best of their ability. And they take it as a knock against them or their career or their job. And in cases like that, where it's, they are the ones that do not have a house, not me. I have a house. I'm going back to my house. I have, a place to stay. I have all these things. I cannot make their crisis my crisis.
100%.
And here's the thing too. We're not just talking this out of personal experience. There is mountains of literature on something called vicarious traumatization. It means that you are gaining trauma from an individual who has trauma. And if somebody is pushing that off on you, we have to, it's the codependency mechanism. And we see it oftentimes in recovery coaches who were themselves at one point in recovery or in addiction, rather. They get into a codependent mechanism where they say, well, I've seen it, I've viewed it, I've been through it. So I know how this best works out. Therefore, this individual that's in front of me that is somewhat experiencing the things that I've experienced, if they do X, Y, and Z, or if I just give them a little bit of a leg up like I got, then they'll be able to find long-term recovery. And it's just like, nobody's recovery is the same. Stop trying to be Captain Save-A, you know what I mean? It's not going to work.
Talking about Captain Save a Boat.
Save a boat.
Save a boat.
Save a
That's
boat.
BOW.
Yes.
Save a boat or
Yes.
BOAT.
But no, I think that in regards to burnout and to callous, those are two things that every person should know about in the beginning. And here's the thing too, we've been emphasizing a lot on callous thus far in the cast, but a healthy callous, it should not be dissociative. It should not be that you do not care. And it's a kind of like an obvious, but there are going to be people that hear this and think like, right off the bat, day one, I need to be callous, which means I don't, I am not invested in this person. I'm not, I don't care how the outcome is. I'm just here for a paycheck. And what do we say at the beginning of each of our classes? We say, we're dealing with people's lives. People die in this field. If you're here for money, first off, you join the wrong field because there's a money
bad field being for money.
Yeah, there ain't money in this field. That's number one. But number two, if you're here for money, there's the door.
Yeah.
Because you're dealing with people's lives.
Right.
That being said, you have to sharpen the tools and really define the boundaries on how you can best stay healthy and help people at the same time, and know where those boundaries are and never cross them.
Investment from 9 to 5. Like, once again, it's that, like, during my business hours, when I'm with a client or when a client calls me and I'm working, of course I want to help that person. I will do everything in my power to help that person. That's what I do. That's why I work in this field, because I want to see people succeed. I want to help people, but I have to end that. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, there's a healthy boundary. Exactly. Healthy callous. Once again, it's like, I want to help them all I can. I want to do everything I can for them. I care about what they're going through, but I cannot care about that when I'm at my house.
Yes.
When I go home at the end of the day, it's like, I have to shut that off, because quite frankly, some days I get frustrated in the field.
Oh yeah.
And it's nice to have that same mentality of, okay, I'm frustrated, but that frustration leaves me. You know what I'm saying? I go home, I don't care about that frustration. I don't care if I had the worst day at work ever. I may call my sponsor, of course, HIPAA regulations. I won't say any names or anything, but I might talk about why I had a bad day, and I'll get over it. It's because that has to end at the door. All those feelings, everything I feel in this day to day in this field has to end at the door. I mean, I'd say it's the same for recovery as well. It doesn't matter if you're not a peer recovery coach. If you have a terrible day, you have to learn how to lay that stuff down at the end of the day. You have to learn how to go home at the end of the day and go to sleep.
Yes.
Not lose sleep over things. Just because your buddy that you know from the 12-step program goes back out and relapses doesn't mean that has to affect your day-to-day life.
Yes.
That has to end at the door.
And one thing that I will say in particular about this, I think the best way to describe it is, you do at some point have to have like the Batman mentality of, I am Batman, I'm the superhero.
I am Batman.
Yeah. I am the superhero known as Batman when I am working in the field. I am Bruce Wayne, and nobody knows that these two are connected when I'm at home. And when you are, we say this to recoveries all the time, and once again, they don't believe us. When you are at home, you need to be in a place where, if you are somebody in long-term recovery sobriety, you need to be able to go to meetings where you're not going to see people that you are working
Right.
with. You need to have outlets that you can express in a healthy manner the things that are going on with you in your recovery and how you demonstrate things. And if you don't have that, you're going to be in a world of hurt real quick. So one big thing that I do want to talk about here is definitely self-care, which is, it is so important for the recovery. It is so important for the recovery coach. It is important for everybody involved that self-care be at the forefront of your mind.
Right. I mean, it's such an opposite of what we did in addiction. I think that's what makes it so important. When we were in active addiction, at least me, when I was in active addiction, I didn't take care of myself. I showered like once every 4 days. I'd stay up for days on end. I wouldn't eat. I wouldn't drink water. I wouldn't do any of those things. I wouldn't take care of myself. So now it's time to switch that flip that switch.
Switch that flip up.
Switch the flip. But it's time to do those things. It's time to act like a normal human being, to a sense, or I guess normal.
The norm is
right. But
act like a muggle.
Yeah, take care of yourself. You're no one else is going to take care of you. You know what I'm saying? No one else is going to do it for you. It's like you have to put yourself first.
Well, I think you just hit it on the head once again, man. You're getting pretty good at that, right? I am the hammer man. No, but it does come down to you are going to be the one to take care of yourself. And we emphasize this with recoveries. We emphasize this with coaches. We say it, to the rooftops and back again, but a lot of times people don't pay attention, or maybe they don't understand what we're meaning, which with recoveries in particular, this is not going to be done for you. You are not a baby. You are not, a toddler. This isn't something where mommy or daddy is going to come and fix the problem for you. It's like, we can help you, but you got to do the work. And a lot of times,
let's just say that we wouldn't actually say that to a recovery, but
I know some of the older coaches that have told kids that like, y'all are a bunch of babies. Like he's told them while he was in a jail, he was teaching a class in a jail setting. He told them, y'all are still a bunch of babies expecting for people to do things for you instead of you doing it for yourself.
Okay, I would never say that to a client.
but it's a matter of, if you're listening to this as a recovery, you have to get to that place and recognize that nobody is going to do this for you. If you want to read more books, nobody is going to read them for you. If you want to get in shape, nobody is going to go to the gym for you. It is you. You are the one. The onus of responsibility completely lies within your pocket, but you have to take the reins.
Right. I mean, yeah, you hit it on the head there again. It's like you have to take the reins. It's like, I like what you said there. If you want to get in shape, no one's going to go to the gym for you. If you want to read books, no one's going to read for you. That's not how life works.
Unless you have Audible.
Yeah, I guess that would work. But yeah, I mean, it's a matter of, if you want to see change in yourself, you have to do that change. And then there's kind of like two parts of self-care as well. I feel like we should touch on. There's the self-care of like literal self-care, right? So there's like brushing your teeth, taking a shower, going to sleep, cooking healthy meals, the actual, like what we think of when we hear people say self-care.
Well, and here's the thing with that particular, as a recovery, it may be stupid. This may sound stupid, especially if you're in early recovery, but I cannot tell you how much of a helpful tool it is, which is create a checklist. That says brush your teeth, that says comb your head, that's make the to-do list that every day you're going to check those boxes off to make sure that you brush your teeth, make sure all that stuff. And it might seem like, I don't need a to-do list, I'll just remember. How many times have we sat down with somebody that they're like, I'll just put it in my calendar, and I've looked at them, or you looked at them, and like, you mean the calendar that's not in your phone? Do you have a physical calendar? Because you're not going to remember. Right. Like when you have to take the responsibility enough to recognize that it's okay to utilize tools that you learned in kindergarten. There's a reason why they teach them to you in kindergarten, because they're fundamental tools that every human probably should learn, which is, what's the to-do list? What do I got to do today? Everything has its spot. Make sure that I live in a clean house.
And I'll say, like, don't make it to where like it's the end of the world if you miss something. No. Like, there are days where I wake up, and I'm going to be honest here. There's days I wake up late and I'm like pushing the limit for work because I hit my snooze button too many times or something. Usually I get up at 6:30, but sometimes I'll wake up at 8. Yeah. And then I got to be to work at 9. So I don't brush my teeth some days.
But he lives in the blocks away from the office.
Yeah, I know. So in the morning, sometimes I might not brush my teeth. I might get up, shower, get changed really quick and run and forget, and it's not the end of the world. I go home at the end of the day and I brush my teeth then, And it's like, there are going to be days where we forget some things and like the self-care checklist doesn't get checked off. And that's okay, but just don't make it a regular routine thing.
Yes, absolutely.
Otherwise your dentist will yell at you. Yeah.
Fair enough. No,
so really quick, I want to talk about the second side of self-care as well. I want to plug that in. Hobbies.
Yes.
Meeting. You know what I'm saying? Like finding an enjoyment in life, right? So we see an addiction We just took a huge part of ourselves.
Mhm.
I was an addict. I like to use, you know what I'm saying? That was my thing. I got drugs. I found ways to get more drugs. I hang out with people who did drugs. That's my life. I took all that away.
Mm.
So it's like, what now? That's a big part of self-care is figure out what now? What hobbies do I like? What do I want to do for enjoyment? Who do I want my new friends to be? Where am I going to go for support? Things like that.
Yeah, and with hobbies, that is the hard one, is the hobbies, because a lot of times our hobbies we're using, which isn't a hobby, that's just another chore. It is like what I when I'm meeting with early recoveries, I say, describe to me your day, and we start having a conversation. And I usually stop them somewhere in the line of like, when you wake up, do you think about the drug? Yes. When you wake up, do you start thinking about how I'm going to get the drug? Yes. When you wake up, do you think, okay, how am I going to get the drug? What am I going to have to sell? What am I going to have to steal? Where am I going to have to go? Who am I going to have to call? Who am I going to have to text? What rides am I going to have to get? Where am I going to yada, 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 yada. You've just created a chore list for yourself.
Right.
Like getting drugs and alcohol, especially when you're in like late term addiction, or, slowly eking your way into recovery.
Things are miserable.
Things are miserable. It is just another horrible thing in your life. It is just, there's a famous comedian, not going to say his name, but famous comedian who said like, I'm so happy I'm not addicted to drugs because it's just another thing that I have to deal with in my life. Like it's just, that's so accurate. But with that, you have to recognize once that's gone, the hobbies, you have to fill that in. You cannot leave a gap in your life somewhere without it being filled in with a lot of really horrible things if you don't insert something in there. Now, it doesn't have to be overnight. It doesn't have to be immediately. I'm not saying go and do I don't want to say stupid hobby, but don't go do a hobby where it's like, I'm going to, fly kites by the pier and I'm going to become a kite collector. I'm going to start collecting buttons. Like you don't have to do that.
But that's fine. If that's
if that's what you're about, dude, you do you. But find something that interests you, get engaged with somewhere. And a lot of the times, usually the only way that you're going to find interest is first off, look who you were before the drug took a hold of your life.
Yep.
So did you like sports? Did you like video games? Did you like hanging out with friends? What was it before then? Okay, so that's a great place to start. If you like playing soccer, maybe that's a great place to start. Then you're going to want to get around a community as soon as possible of recoveries, people that are on the same walk as you, same journey as you, that are saying like, I no longer want this substance or whatever it might be to have control over my life. And that's when you can start batting off ideas of like, hey, I used to play soccer. I'm thinking about getting back into that. Have any good places? And those people will be able to, absorb you into kind of their clique and then push you into wherever you should probably be going for your hobby.
Right. And I'll say the other side of that, it goes along with what you're saying. So get in that support group and learn how to say yes. Right. So that's where
yes,
I found,
man. Yeah.
That's where I found a lot of my hobbies at. Like I like to play Magic the Gathering. Okay. So for all you who didn't know, I'm a nerd. So I like to play Magic the Gathering. And how I figured that out is when I was living at Endeavor House, a buddy of mine, he's like, hey, you want to come over and play some Magic? Or we actually played at the house originally, but then they told us we couldn't do that anymore for, rules and stuff. But I started going over to his house and we would play Magic and I'm like, man, I really enjoyed this. I'm getting a good company. I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and I like it. And then like someone invited me over, hey man, you want to come play some video games? Yeah, sure. Let's go do that. I learned how to say yes to invites. I like going out to dinner with people in recovery after meetings. That's fun.
That is really fun because you get to talk about, and that's where the most interesting debates come in, I would say, about recovery. That's where you start to have the conversations that it might be uncouth to have around, let's say, the tables. In some programs, it is somewhat of a tradition, and some programs, a spiritual tradition, if you will, that it's like, we don't crosstalk. We don't crosstalk. We don't crosstalk. Well, dinner after the meetings is where you crosstalk. And you start, that's where the debates, that's where the gauntlet is thrown.
And then you get in a fist fight at Applebee's.
Yes. Don't do that. No, but I think I believe you're absolutely right. Is the flip switch of that around self-care, the flip switch flip. The way that you find sustained recovery and self-care is you have to start looking at what were the things that interested me possibly before addiction. What are going to be the things now? Now, for those of you, there are some people out there that started addiction so early on in life that they don't even remember. It's like, okay, that's fine. Start saying yes. Like you said, start dipping your toe in the water in different places and figure out, maybe you like crocheting. I don't know. Maybe you like to bedazzle jeans. I don't know, but find the thing that you like and then start to pursue it in a healthy way.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think I mean when I say healthy way?
Anything that's good, bad, or indifferent used to an excess is unhealthy.
Yes.
So if I was to, I actually enjoy crocheting from time to time. Okay, for those of you who didn't know,
I'm a nerd and I like to crochet.
Yes, there you go. So if I do it very rarely, but okay, so an example of that would be is I like crocheting, so I quit my job so I can full-time crochet and sell my crochet art. That's a possible pathway for some people, but not for me. So it's like to a healthy extent. If I was missing work because I was crocheting, that'd be a problem. If I was missing work because I was playing video games all night, that's a problem. It used to excess is always a problem, no matter what it is.
Absolutely. So yeah, I think, I mean, we were starting this meditation off like just we normally have questions, and we do have questions to get to, but I think it's important that we have the talk about callus and about self-care, because these are all things that normally they don't emphasize in early recovery. They don't emphasize in this field enough. Right. Oftentimes people get in this field, and we've said this before, trial by fire. That is something you should seek. You should seek to get into a profession that you're not going to be treated with kid gloves. Because if you get treated with kid gloves, I promise you, you're going to have a lot of bad experiences.
Yeah, you guys threw me into the hospital in my first.
Yeah, we threw you. I mean, trial by fire,
Right.
Because you are forced to adapt to survive or leave. Because by doing that, it's you force yourself to get into uncomfortable positions and then recognize it is completely relying on me to get myself out of this. So then you create the tools in the synapses in the brain, the connections in your brain to be able to say, can I repeat that? Whatever I just did, it was successful. Can I continue to repeat that? And then look at you now. I mean, you're running programs, you're running classes, you're teaching, you're doing all these kinds of things. But do you think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we threw you in just the deep end and said, start swimming?
Right. I mean, that's a huge part. And that's something I think we can actually segue into another conversation here, but the uncomfortability, right? So I had to adapt to something I had no idea about, you know, and that's where growth happens. I've talked about this time and time again, is like, you have to get uncomfortable. Jordan Peterson, he talks about in his book, 12 Rules for Life. He says, he talks about the Tao symbol relativity. So yin and yang, and there's a little bit of chaos and order and a little bit of order and chaos for balance, right? And we have to have that in our life. We have to have 1 foot in order, 1 foot in chaos. My foot was in order. If I had questions, I knew who to call. I was walked through policies and procedures. I was walked through the paperwork. I was walked through data entry. I knew what I was doing, but nobody told me like, oh, this is what you're going to expect when you walk in that room.
Yeah, so they didn't tell you like, hey, you know that hose that you're about to go drink out of? It's a fire hose.
Exactly.
But it more or less was like, hey, you can go get a drink from that hose. And then as soon as he's about to turn it on, it's a fire hose. Boom.
Right. So there we go. You know, it's like that uncomfortability that I walked into with 1 foot in order, 1 foot in uncomfortability, substantial growth. And I think that was so prophetic of Jordan Peterson to say, we have, if we're too much in, and I'm going to paraphrase this obviously, because I haven't read that book in a while, but if we're completely in order, we grow stagnant. If we're completely in chaos, we spiral out of control. Yes. So there's two sides, right? So we need to have a balance of both, but if we're not in uncomfortability, we won't grow at all. Exactly.
And I at least I know in your experiences and my experiences, we had vastly different things happen to us in our early career.
But you worked in Section 8, right?
They were similar in the sense of insanity. I was thrown in kind of overnight into a situation where I was running case management for Section 8 housing in a program that was so rough. It was a specific form of called permanent supportive housing. It was so rough that even community mental health, or our local community mental health, which is like our mental health agency for Ingham County or for the Tri-County area where we live, they gave the contract up because it was such a difficult contract, because of all the requirements, because of the high level of dual diagnosis that they were having to deal with. And I jumped into that with nothing. I mean, when I went into that job, the case manager, the primary case manager that knew all the information and what was going on was let go the week before I started. And the other person that was in there was basically a recovery coach that didn't know, God bless him, but didn't know a lot about what that case management position did, and only knew kind of his thing and what he was supposed to do. And when I got in there, I was like, okay, what do I do here? What do I do here? What do I do here? And there was no answers for me. There was nobody told me what I needed to do, because nobody knew what was in here. So I once again, trial by fire, I had to take the onus of responsibility to do what? read the contractual requirements. So I had to read through the contracts, which I'm a new case manager at this company. That's not my job, but I'm reading through these contracts, seeing what policies and guidelines there are, and then looking at what our data system and our data requirements are, and then going through and charting out each clientele. And at that point, there was 90 of them, going through, charting out each one of them and getting them down, then assigning them to myself and the recovery coach and saying, this is what we're doing here. This is what we're doing here. This is what we're doing here. I had to do that all within a month of me starting this job. And I had never been in this field before.
Solid.
And it was after that, and there was crazy stuff that happened after that. But after that, it was forcing me into a situation where I was unbelievably uncomfortable, but I had two options. I could leave, or I could make it in my own image.
So I want to ask you, how would you correlate that to someone just beginning recovery? Because a lot of what you said, I'm like, man, that's really like life in general, but when you start something new.
Yes.
So talk about that to people in early recovery.
So I think right on. So early recovery, here's the reality. Once again, you are responsible to you. And everybody hears that and they're like, well, it's kindergarten. That's obvious. You don't understand. Yeah. I mean, you may think you understand. Oftentimes you do not. What I mean is you are the one that's going to get yourself up off the couch, off the bed, off of whatever is going on, and start to carve out your life. One of the things that I say, especially to young recoveries, and I know I said it to you, is let's play an experiment, a hypothetical, if you will. How old are you? Okay. In the United States, it takes anywhere from 10 to 14 years, depending on where you're at in your life and in your education. It takes anywhere from 10 to 14 years to get a doctorate. Okay. So from here, fast forward 10 years, you could have your doctorate, which means in 20 years or 15 years, you could have a 15 to 20 year career as a doctor in the field of your choice. Where's your excuse? What are you doing? So I say that to recoveries, and I say that to make them understand all responsibility lies on your shoulders. If you do not wake up with the ambition of, I must change, and it doesn't have to be big, like incremental change over time leads to large gains, just 1% today. Today I cleaned my room.
Right.
Today I woke up at the time I wanted to wake up, and I read my daily meditation, and I ate a good breakfast, and I got to work on time. Great. Do that tomorrow. Do that again the next day. Do that for a month. Now add something to it. Now do it for another month. Now add some more to it. You have to
get uncomfortable.
You have to get uncomfortable. Right. That is the only way it's going to change. Everybody, any major weightlifter, any major power lifter, or a sports athlete will tell you that this is the case. How do you grow muscle? You have to be uncomfortable. You have to keep on lifting the weights that you don't want to lift, even when everything in your body is saying, put it down, you idiot. My body is on fire. And you got to keep going. Right. And it's the same principle with recovery. It's the same principle with our lives in general. If you are in early recovery, get yourself out of the mindset. The quicker you get yourself out of this, the quicker you're going to have major gains in your recovery. Get yourself out of the mindset that anybody owes you anything at all. The world doesn't owe you anything. Your parents, they may not have treated you well. They don't owe you anything. Nobody owes you jack diddle in squat. The courts don't, the judge doesn't, the cops don't, your lawyer doesn't, your doctor doesn't, your girlfriend, your wife, your husband, your kids. Nobody owes you anything. Once you get your head wrapped around that, you can start to actually find some success in your life.
I would agree. And then what I was actually going for with that question, I was throwing you a bone. You didn't grab it though. In early recovery. So I'm talking about when people first come in, that what I was kind of talking about is you were thrown into something that you had no idea about. You were super uncomfortable and you were kind of like, what goes on here? What is happening? That's where I've seen radical growth in most recoveries. It's either one of two things, radical growth or they relapse.
Yep.
And that's kind of what I was going for. So like uncomfortability, right? I hated going to meetings in early recovery. Hated it because
I was present for those moments. He definitely hated them.
Yeah. I had to sit there and listen to people talk that I didn't want to be there. I'm like, when is this going to end? And
looking at the clock.
Right. And then I try to share it. I'm all nervous, because I don't know what I'm talking about, and it was uncomfortable, but it made me grow. And I grew to appreciate those meetings. I grew to start doing those things, and I started to get in trouble for some of the things I was doing at the house. And that was uncomfortable for me. I started, I was sleeping past when I was supposed to sleep. I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. I was argumentative. I was belligerent. And it was very uncomfortable for me to get corrected by those things and have to do the punishments that followed those actions, because it's sober living your house has consequences when you're not doing what you're supposed to do. And I had to do those uncomfortable things, and I've grown from it.
Yes.
It's like, it's just uncomfortability in early recovery is so pertinent. And then it's also very pertinent to say, okay, this is very uncomfortable, so I'm going to do it until it gets comfortable.
Yes.
I don't like this, so I'm going to do it until I love to go to meetings now. I go to a meeting and I love hearing people share. I haven't been to a meeting where I've been like, man, when is this going to end in months? Every once in a while, you get to those.
Yeah. You get to a dragger where it's like you walk in and there's 40 people and you're like, oh,
Well, not even that, man. You go in there and there's like, it's mostly with like the really old timers that really gets me sometimes. Like, I love your message, but you're talking too slow, right?
Love your message. Refine
Engage
it.
me.
Yeah. Refine it down. Let's make it a little bit more direct towards the crowd.
Yeah. It's like, it's been 10 minutes.
Know your audience. Know your audience.
Yeah. No offense to any old timers out there. I love hearing the experience of recovery, but it's just that uncomfortability is where I got to be at, man. And that's true in all my life. I got to really dig into that. And that's true, especially true in early recovery.
Yes.
Even now, if I grow stagnant, I relapse. That's a fact of the matter.
Plain and simple.
I got 2.5 years clean. Doesn't matter.
Yep. I mean, it is the natural order of life. It's if you grow so comfortable in a situation that you're just okay going along to get along. Now that's okay for some.
Mhm.
There are recoveries out there that, especially in older and later forms of recovery, they are comfortable with their constant schedule. They wake up, they do the same thing. But what do? They give back. They sow in. Yes.
Well. There's still a spiritual progression.
Yes. They sow it, maybe their life isn't necessarily progressing on the outside, but on the inside they are. They are trying new things. They are being more bold. They are taking on sponsees. They are moving forward. But for young recoveries, both in time and in actual age, get up and do something.
Mhm.
I mean, we've had this discussion once again a dozen times if we've had it once. There is no justification, barring a serious physical or mental disability, that you can't get your life together at a young recovery age.
Even I would
even say both of those.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest.
I was gonna say, even for old recoveries, I mean, there's an onus of responsibility that gets taken on as soon as they come in recovery. Stuff has to change either way. It doesn't matter what age group you're in, and there's really no excuse, no matter what. I would say no matter what, there's really no excuse why your life can't progress in a forward direction.
I 100% agree, but I usually pick on young recoveries just because
you're rude.
Well, because I'm rude, but no, because I that's where I hear the most excuses from.
Mhm.
Because in people who are finding recovery later in their age, they usually, they may have excuses, but it's all kind of like, it's reminiscing on the past. It's like, well, this, that, and something else. The young recoveries start throwing things at the fan that it's like, well, the president and politics and this, that, and it's just something like, get out of here. What are you talking about?
Right.
Like, get your life in order before you start complaining about things that have no bearing on you using today.
Right. We like to look at the outside because we don't look at the inside.
And you know of this situation. I had a participant who continued he would go to meetings and then he relapse, go to meetings, relapse, go to meetings, relapse. And then I finally just tried to have a heart to heart with him, have a conversation. He's just like, I don't see why America's so great and this president and this, that, and something else. I'm like, you don't have a place to sleep tonight. Why are we talking about this? What?
Mm-hmm.
So we have to recognize that, yes, it's important to be uncomfortable. Yes, it's important to start to progress, but you're kidding yourself if most things can be overcame, not all by any means, but most things can be overcame by looking it in the face and saying, okay, I need to make a plan of attack to overcome this. If I don't have my license, if I don't have a job, if I don't have a car, if I need to get my kids back, I need to get my house. These things can be overcame. How do we know that? We do it every day.
Right.
That's our job.
And I still run into that. And that's a conversation I've had is like, it's the problem, looking at the problem, like, what's the solution?
Yeah.
During 12-step meetings, they talk about, we only care about your problem and what you want, or what you want to do about your problem and how we can help. That's what we want to hear about. And that's true when I'm meeting with a client. That's true when I'm working on my own recovery. I don't want to sit there and be like, man, life sucks. It sucks. Everything sucks. I don't want to do this. It's like, that's not healthy. If I want to look at it, I want to say, okay, life sucks right now. Why does life suck? What can I do about it? Who can I ask for help on this?
Yes.
Bam.
And we see too many. And I think the most difficult thing for me, I don't know for you, but definitely for me, is I know that's the equation. Life sucks. What are you going to do about it?
Mm-hmm.
Identify why it sucks, then start making a plan of action. And we know this and we train this and we've integrated this. And then to see young recoveries, or to see, it doesn't matter their age, but people who are young in their recovery get to that point where they don't understand that it's like the onus of responsibility is on your shoulders.
Right.
It is your life. These things happening to you. What are you going to do about it? I'll help.
I was gonna say, and you will have help on that.
Yes,
path.
I'll help find the resources. I'll help identify the barriers. I'll ask you the questions that might be too difficult for you to ask yourselves. I'm more than willing to do that. But what's your buy-in?
Mhm.
What are you, because here's the thing, and I know you've seen this a million times. I can't help you with something if I don't know about it.
Mhm.
If there's something going on in your recovery that is really detrimental and it's making it very difficult for you to achieve other things, and every time we have tried to create a goal for some reason, it doesn't work, and then I don't know why, and it's because of this one little thing over here that you're not telling me, there's
Mhm.
nothing I can do.
Yeah, and that does happen all the time in this field. You'll talk to a client, and then that same day that client relapsed, you're like, why didn't you say something?
Yeah,
you
like
know?
what's going on here?
Right, and there's two sides,
And we'll keep working with them, by the way. We'll keep
Well,
working even
absolutely.
after that happens, but it does come down to what are we doing?
Right, they don't get kicked off they don't get kicked off because they had a slip up. That happens.
Yep.
We say relapse is a part of recovery. It's not mandatory, but it happens.
It happens.
So the other side I want to say is like, yes, we can't do anything about it if we don't know about it. We also can't do anything about it if you won't do something about it.
Yes.
I've had so many, and this mostly happens. This doesn't happen with clients very much because most of the time, if clients talking to me, they usually want recovery.
Yes.
Unless I'm in the hospital, maybe that would change it. But with my friends that like I lived with at Endeavor House or I've met in recovery, they've gone back out and they relapse. I'm like, man, what are you doing? And I try to pull them back in, but the bottom line is I can't do it until they're ready. I might want it more than they do right now.
Oh, yeah.
And that's just like, if they don't want to do something about it, client, recovery, doesn't matter. If it's a friend, if they don't want to do something about the problem, there's nothing I can do for them.
Not a thing we can do for him
Right.
because it is what it is what it is.
Right. I can
Like,
provide all the resources in the world. Doesn't mean they're going to use them.
Yeah, I
So,
could have the golden path laid out for you in particular. We can get you to treatment, 3/4
Mhm.
house. We can have you set up for the next 2 years. We could project your recovery out. But if you don't take that first step, there, because we've done that before. We've sat with plenty enough individuals that come at it as, oh, fill out this application for me, fill out this paperwork for me, fill out this, fill out that. And it's just like, I have a house. I have my driver's
Right.
license. I have this, I have that. Now, if you can't read, if you're illiterate, if it's difficult for you to write, okay, that's a good excuse. I'll help you with that.
Mhm.
But if it's just like, I don't want to do this today.
I actually had a client straight up tell me, he said, isn't it your job to do these things for me? And I'm like, no. I'm like, it's my job.
No.
It's my job to point you in the right direction. It's actually very harmful for me to do these things for you, and I think it's important.
I
you
mean,
know?
but and I know the participant you're talking about, I mean, they got a message.
Mhm.
I mean, the clear message is like, once again, this isn't my responsibility. My responsibility is to help you identify what you need help with and to help remove those barriers. My responsibility is not to fill out your application and do your
Mhm.
homework for you.
Yeah, and then I love saying, it's my favorite saying to say when it always happens, recovery coaches say, thank you, you're doing so much great work with me and I really appreciate it. And that's the point. My favorite thing plugs in, and that's, I'm not doing anything except giving you phone numbers. You're
Yep.
doing the work. You know what
You're
I'm saying?
doing the work.
And I couldn't say that if I did all the work for you. So it's like, and then you see their face light up. They're like, you know what? You're right, man. You just gave me resources and I walked this out. I could do this. And that's what we're trying to promote. That's what we want to see every person in recovery find.
Well, and I think of no better way to wrap up this podcast. Yeah, once again, on Wednesdays, we meditate on recovery things, but Hunter and I are both in recovery. We work in this field. And sometimes I think it's important to have conversations like this because these are the conversations that I wish I would have had with people that were training me.
Sure.
These are the conversations I wish I would have known about when getting my degree, because there is so much fluff and there's so much artificial structuring when you get into this field
Mhm.
that you don't have the reality presented to you until sometimes it's too late.
Mhm.
So I think conversations like this, extraordinarily valuable. We're going to tell you, you may not listen, you may, but at the end of the day, it's not going to change the fact that it's not true.
Right.
Or change the fact that it's true. Yeah, not true. No, it's not going to change the fact that it's true. We're just telling you this is the reality of the field that we work
Well,
in.
the field and also recovery in general. So I think all these things that we plug in and we're saying like in the field, it's super important. If you're recovering, you didn't get anything out of this podcast, if you did not find something in here,
Then you ain't listening.
look, go back and listen again, because there's a lot of stuff we were talking about that helps me in my recovery pushing forward. So I know it's out there for us. So
Absolutely. With that being said, Hunter, as always, Good talking to you, man. Friday, I believe we're doing an interview with Sean Finnerty. I don't know which one of us is interviewing him yet, but tune in.
We're gonna fist fight over.
Yeah, right. Tune in to Friday. Sean Finnerty, fantastic guy. Like I said,
Absolutely.
he is the manager of the Project Assert program inside of the hospitals here in Lansing, Michigan, which is a screening, brief intervention, and referral to treatment program. He does an absolutely amazing job. One of the best guys I know for sure, and one of the coolest recoveries. I mean, you want to talk about a heck of a story. So tune in for then. And if you're not tuning in then, tune in next Monday where we are going to continue on the neurobiology of addiction. Have a good one.
Take it easy.